I remember the moment with such clarity, it's almost laughable now, like a cruel inside joke I was the last to hear. Caroline had just come home from her business trip, all smiles and exhaustion, dumping her suitcase by the door like she always did. She kicked off her heels with a groan, stretched her arms, and muttered the words that would linger like rot under fresh paint. Things got so crazy. I'm just so tired. Tired. She said it like it was some badge of honor. Tired because the meeting ran late. Tired because the client was demanding. Tired because her boss insisted she whine and dine the guy or risk blowing the whole contract. That's what she told me over a glass of wine, sinking into the couch like a woman who carried the weight of the company on her back. But I caught the flicker in her eyes, the hitch in her breath, just a second too long when I asked how the dinner went. Well, she said, shrugging with a little too much nonchalance. You know how these things are. Clients need to feel important. That was her line, the one that made the first domino tilt. The rest of the evening played out like any other. We watched TV, kissed goodnight, made love like strangers performing a script. She was too quiet afterward, and when she drifted off, I just stared at the ceiling, wondering if she'd always been that distant or if I had just started noticing. I didn't know what I was looking for the next morning, but I found it anyway. While she showered, I grabbed her suitcase to put away the laundry like I always did. She hated unpacking, said it made the trip feel too real. There, in the inner zipper pocket, was a receipt. Room service, 2 entrees, 1 bottle of Cabernet. Timestamp just before midnight. I wasn't with her, and she doesn't eat steak. The next clue was worse. A single condom wrapper folded neatly into the smallest pocket of her toiletry bag. Not used. Just there, mocking me with its existence. Caroline had an IUD. We hadn't used protection in years. I didn't confront her. Not yet. There's a difference between a suspicion and a case. And I needed a case. So I waited, watched, listened. The next trip came 2 weeks later. Same client, she claimed. Big deal, long-term potential. Said she might need to go above and beyond to secure it. I almost choked on my coffee. What does that mean? I asked, not even trying to hide the edge of my voice. She smiled, half laughing. Relax. I mean late nights, presentations, last-minute dinners. Nothing shady, I promise. And that was when I knew something was shady. Because she promised. By the time she left, I had already installed the tracker on her phone, cloned her messages, synced her cloud backup to a separate folder. She wasn't exactly tech-savvy, and I knew where she hid her passwords, tucked in her planner like a grocery list. That night, alone in the dark with a glass of scotch, I read her texts. Nothing explicit, but enough to form the outline of something rotten. A man named M, she kept referencing. Never by name, just initial. He wants to go for drinks again. I'm not sure I can keep stalling him. Joy says we can't afford to lose this one. I'll just keep him happy. And then the one that broke me. I hate this part, but it's just one night. Then we get the deal. She didn't say no. She didn't resist. She just justified. Too tired, she said. Things got so crazy. I sat there staring at the screen for what felt like hours. The words blurred into static. My stomach turned. My jaw ached from clenching. I had given her the benefit of the doubt. Covered for her with the kids. Canceled my own work trips so she could chase her ambitions. I believed her when she said she was just networking. I believed her when she said it was just dinner. But this wasn't just dinner. This wasn't business. This was betrayal in designer heels and a company credit card. And it wasn't over. By the time Caroline's plane touched down that Friday, I had everything in place. The tracker showed she'd spent the night in room 928 at the Wyndham downtown. Not the hotel her company usually booked, and not the hotel she had listed on her calendar. That alone was a red flag. But what truly sealed it wasn't the hotel. It was the brief ping her phone gave off at 2:07 a.m. A rideshare pickup destination, his apartment. I had his name now. Mark Devereaux, mid-40s, CEO of a mid-sized tech firm, divorced, no kids. Wealthy, smug. The kind of man who wore success like a tailored suit and smiled just a little too long when he shook your hand. The man she needed to keep happy for the deal. Saturday morning, I played the loving husband. Made pancakes for the kids. Kissed her cheek when she came down, makeup-free, glowing in that way people do after they've slept too well. Or been well used. She poured her coffee slowly, eyes scanning the backyard, not meeting mine. How was it? I asked. The trip. She exhaled like she'd been waiting for me to ask. Exhausting. But we landed the account. Joy's thrilled. I smiled, nodded, pretended to toast with my coffee. Congrats. You earned it. I watched her closely as she sipped. Her hand trembled just slightly. She didn't notice, but I did. She went back upstairs after breakfast to rest, and I slipped in her office, where she left her laptop bag unattended. Within 5 minutes, I had cloned her work email. The real gold, though, was in her notes. A spiral-bound journal she carried to meetings. Page 42. Scribbled outlines of client dinners, names, talking points, and beneath a hastily drawn doodle of wine glasses, a line that made my blood run cold. If I sleep with him, it's done. Joy said he's in. I hate that I said yes. I stared at those words for 10 minutes. Not because I didn't believe them, because I did. It was all I needed to read. My wife had made a calculated choice. This wasn't weakness. This was transaction. She didn't stumble into betrayal. She scheduled it. She called it sacrifice. Called it necessary. Called it just part of the job. What kind of job requires you to lie with a man for leverage? I'll tell you, the kind of job that turns wives into strangers and marriages into charades. Later that evening, we had friends over. Laughing, clinking glasses, the kids running barefoot through the yard while the grill hissed and smoked. She played hostess. She always was good at that. Smiling. Perfect. Toasting to new beginnings in her career. Only I knew what the price of that toast was. And then, something happened. A moment that twisted the knife deeper. As our guests left, one of the wives leaned in, a little drunk, whispering, "You know, you're so lucky." Most men would kill to have a wife who's as driven as Caroline. She'd do anything for her career. Anything. The word bounced around in my skull like a pinball. When the kids were tucked in, and Caroline turned the bedroom light off, she curled against me, softer than usual, like she was sorry, or maybe trying to wash it all away in one night of intimacy. Her hand slid under the covers, tracing familiar paths across my body. I didn't stop her, not because I forgave her, because I needed to feel it, the lie in her touch, the disconnect between her breath and her betrayal. And I needed her to wonder why I didn't kiss her back, why my hands didn't pull her closer, why I stared at the ceiling while she gave me a performance she thought could fix it. When it was over, she rested her head on my chest and whispered, "I missed you." I stared into the dark and whispered back, "I know." She fell asleep moments later, lips parted in contentment. But I didn't sleep. I lay awake, going over every move in my head like a chess player 4 turns deep into the endgame. I had a name. I had the hotel. I had the timestamp. I had the admission in her own handwriting. But it wasn't enough. I didn't want a clean divorce. I wanted the truth to bleed out in the open. I wanted her job, her reputation, her carefully curated image of the good mother, the ambitious wife. I wanted her to feel what I felt. Cornered, stripped, deceived. I was done pretending, done forgiving. But first, I needed to make her feel safe. Just long enough to dig the final pit she'd fall into. The next week was surgical, measured, controlled, like dismantling a bomb. Snip the wrong wire and it all goes to hell. But I wasn't in a rush. I'd waited too long already. I could wait a little longer, especially now that I had my finger on the pressure point. Caroline thought. I believed her. That was the magic trick. She confessed just enough, told me the trip was exhausting, the client intense, the days long. She dropped those vague, exhausted sighs like breadcrumbs, assuming I'd interpret them as hard work. Not compromise. Not sex. She underestimated me. On Wednesday, I forgot to pick up the kids. Told her I was slammed at work. Really, I was tailing her from a coffee shop across the street from her office. Her routine was sharp. Coffee at 9:15, client meetings, lunch at the corner bistro. That day, Mark Devereaux joined her. I watched from behind a tinted window as they laughed, touched hands across the table like it meant nothing. That's when I knew it wasn't just one night. That was the lie she fed herself, that it was a moment, a slip, a sacrifice. No, this was a pattern. Practiced. Comfortable. I took photos. Lots of them. I wasn't sloppy. I had a high-end zoom lens and a clean line of sight. Mark touched the small of her back as they exited. She laughed at something and rested her hand on his chest like it belonged there. Like I didn't exist. That night at dinner, she told me they were finalizing the onboarding documents for the new account. She left out the part about Mark's hand on her thigh. Joy wants me to meet with him again on Friday, she said. Dinner. Casual. I set my fork down. You've really impressed her. Her smile was slow, controlled. I'm just doing what I have to. I sipped my wine. I'm proud of you. She blushed. Guilt or flattery, I couldn't tell. But she looked down when she smiled. That was the moment I realized how easy it had become for her to compartmentalize. She'd built 2 lives and padded the wall between them with justifications and white lies. Maybe, in her head, she wasn't really cheating. Maybe she believed this was all for us, our family, her career, our future. And maybe that made her even more dangerous. I needed to press harder. Friday night. She wore a low-cut navy dress I hadn't seen in years. Not the kind of thing you wear to impress a client. The kind of thing you wear when you already know you're going to his hotel room after. You look incredible, I said. She spun once, teasing. You think so? I'd cancel dinner just to keep you here. Her laugh was soft. Don't tempt me. Then she kissed my cheek and walked out the door. By 11:42 p.m., her phone location hadn't moved from the Grandfield Hotel downtown. Same as before. Different room number. This time I didn't just track her, I followed her. I saw them together, stepping out onto the balcony of room 1107, wine glasses in hand. They weren't discussing contracts. They weren't reviewing pitch decks. Her heels were off, and she leaned into him like she was home. I took photos. Not enough for a courtroom, but enough for her. Enough to crack her world in half. That night, I didn't sleep. I laid in bed, staring at the ceiling, waiting for the sound of the garage door. When it finally opened at 2:03 a.m., I pretended to be asleep. She moved like a ghost, careful not to wake me. She climbed into bed and sighed softly, like she just put the kids to sleep after a long day. That sigh, it burned. She didn't kiss me. She didn't touch me. Just rolled onto her side and drifted off like a woman with nothing to hide. The next morning, I made breakfast. Eggs, toast, avocado the way she liked it. I poured her coffee and kissed the top of her head. She smiled, maybe relieved I hadn't asked any questions, maybe proud of her performance. You're in such a good mood today, she said, amused. I smiled back. Of course I am, I said. I've never seen you shine like this. I watched her chew, watched the moment the compliment hit her and mixed with guilt. Her brow furrowed for half a second, then cleared. Thank you, she said. That means a lot. It did, because I meant it as a warning. You don't get to be both the betrayer and the beloved. Not for long. The following Monday, Caroline was unusually quiet at breakfast. No cooing over the kids, no endless scroll through her work emails while sipping coffee. She just sat there, stirring her yogurt like it was something she had to conquer. I asked her if everything was all right. She nodded quickly, but her smile didn't reach her eyes. Just tired, she said again. That word, tired. It had become her camouflage. The excuse that covered everything, from skipped sex to missed date nights, to the way she flinched whenever I looked at her too long. She was starting to crack, and I hadn't even touched her yet. But I would. Not physically, psychologically. She didn't know it yet, but I'd already scheduled a consultation with Lorraine Drake, an attorney who specialized in divorce cases involving infidelity. She was sharp, brutal, and knew exactly how to hit where it hurt. She'd handled corporate divorces with media fallout. What I needed her for was quieter, but more surgical. I want her reputation, her career, her lies, all dismantled. I told her. Lorraine didn't blink. Do you want to expose her publicly? No, I said. I want her to think she's safe while it's all slipping through her fingers. She grinned. That's more difficult, but more satisfying. The next day, I received a forwarded email from one of my contacts at Caroline's firm. Discreetly, of course. I had dropped a few hints, expressing concern about Caroline's workload, wondering if she'd been acting strangely. The woman, a senior account manager, sent over a calendar invite Caroline had created for another client meeting next Thursday. But it wasn't listed as Mark Devereaux. No, she'd changed the entry title to Personal Errand. And the meeting? Scheduled for 9:30 p.m., at a lounge in a boutique hotel. I printed it, slid it into a folder, added it to the growing stack. I needed one last nail for the coffin, so I went to Mark. He didn't know who I was at first. I waited outside his office building and approached casually, dressed in tailored slacks and a dark coat, blending in with the midday business crowd. "You're Mark, right?" I asked, smiling like a guy who just recognized someone from LinkedIn. He paused. "Yeah. Do we know each other?" "Not yet, but we have a mutual acquaintance. Caroline." His face didn't register anything at first. Then it twitched. That's all I needed. I just wanted to shake the hand of the man who thinks he's screwing his way into a long-term contract, I said quietly, stepping closer. He stiffened. His smile faltered. "Excuse me?" I handed him an envelope. Not the photos, not yet. Just a copy of the anti-fraternization clause from Caroline's employee contract, and a typed and signed draft of a formal complaint to her HR department citing inappropriate conduct with a client. "I suggest you take the next few days to reconsider whatever arrangement you think you have," I said calmly, "because the woman you're sleeping with is about to be on the receiving end of a corporate bullet." Then I walked away. I didn't need him to call her. I wanted him to. Let the panic set in. Let the story start to fall apart on both ends. Let them try to sync lies and timelines when the walls were already closing in. That evening, Caroline came home early. She was pale, on edge. She asked me if I was upset with her. It was the first time she'd asked anything remotely like that in months. "Why would I be upset?" I asked, feigning confusion. "I don't know. You've just been different. I've been proud of you," I said, setting down my glass. "You're doing so well at work. I'm just trying not to distract you." She stared at me for a long time. I could see the wheels turning. She was trying to gauge what I knew, what I didn't. That's the thing about liars. They project their fear onto you. Every silence is a loaded gun. Every glance is a landmine. "You're sure everything's okay?" she asked. I stood, walked around the table, and kissed the top of her head. "Everything's just getting started," I whispered. That night, she sat up late, scrolling her phone long after I went to bed. I pretended to sleep. Her breathing changed when she got up and went into the hallway. I heard the sliding of the vent panel in the guest room, the click of something being hidden. The second phone, still using it, still lying. I didn't need to catch her in the act anymore. I'd already written the ending, but I wasn't going to read it to her yet. First, I was going to burn the preface. Caroline didn't notice the shift at first. Mark stopped calling. That was step one. I watched the burner phone log sit idle, unanswered. A message sent Monday night at 11:02 p.m. "Need to talk. Please don't ghost me." Then Tuesday. "WTF is going on? Call me." Then nothing. Her mood soured. She picked at her food, drank more wine than usual, left for work early, came home late, but didn't bring back that victorious glow she used to wear like a medal. The shine was gone, and I made sure it stayed gone. You see, Joy, her boss, received a package Wednesday morning. I sent it anonymously. No return address. Just a manila envelope with no note. Only the following. The dinner receipt from the Grandfield Hotel. A printed copy of Caroline's personal calendar, with the client errand highlighted in red. A copy of the company's anti-fraternization policy. And one grainy photo of Caroline and Mark kissing on the balcony of room 1107. Just enough to make Joy uncomfortable. Not enough to get Caroline fired outright, but enough to get her called in. Caroline came home that evening looking like someone had scraped her clean from the inside. She didn't talk during dinner, barely touched her wine. The kids noticed, asked if Mommy was okay. She said she was just under the weather. But I knew that look. That was the look of someone who just realized her lies were no longer airtight. She tried to rally Thursday morning, wore her best suit, did her hair like she was walking into a deposition. When I asked if she had any big meetings, she hesitated a full 3 seconds too long before saying, "Just a performance review." Performance review. That was cute. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. I didn't follow her to work that day. I didn't need to. I had someone else do it. Lorraine had a contact who worked building security for Caroline's office complex. They gave us just enough. Caroline was pulled into a closed-door session with HR and 2 senior partners for over an hour. No one said what it was about. But when she came home that night, she went straight to the bathroom and threw up. The cracks were widening. Still, I said nothing. I kissed her forehead, told her to take a shower, watched her nod, almost in relief, like she thought I was still in the dark, like I was her shelter from the storm she created. That was the part that nearly made me laugh. She thought I was her safe place. The next morning, I made my move. Not with a confrontation, not with yelling, just a simple, short text I knew she wouldn't ignore. We need to talk. I found something in the vent. She replied in 47 seconds. What vent? What do you mean? I didn't answer. I let her stew. Let her panic build while she sat at work wondering which version of the lie I'd uncovered, which thread was unraveling, which secret had slipped. By 11 a.m., she was calling. I didn't pick up. At 11:30, another text. Please tell me what you found. At noon, I sent her a photo of the burner phone, face down on my desk next to a cup of coffee and a copy of her marriage certificate. No caption, no response, just silence. I could feel the shift in the air even before she got home. Her car didn't pull in like normal. She idled in the driveway for 5 minutes before stepping out, taking a deep breath like she was preparing to face a firing squad. I was in the kitchen. She entered quietly, her heels clicking too loud on the hardwood. She stood at the edge of the counter, eyes hollow, lips trembling. She looked like a woman who had forgotten how to speak. I didn't say anything. She finally broke. I can explain. Don't, I said calmly. She swallowed hard. It wasn't like, stop. I don't want your version. I want the truth. She hesitated, then reached into her purse and pulled out the burner phone. Set it on the counter. A peace offering. A corpse. She didn't know I already had it cloned. I was scared, she said. I thought if I said no, we'd lose everything. Joy told me. I raised a hand. Let me ask you one thing. Did you sleep with him to land the deal, or were you already doing it before? Her silence was my answer. I was going to stop, she whispered. You did, when he ghosted you. Her face collapsed. I took my drink, walked past her, paused at the doorway. We're going to finish this weekend like nothing happened. For the kids. But come Monday, Caroline, your world changes. She whispered, what are you going to do? I didn't answer, because it wasn't what I was going to do. It was what I'd already done. The house was calm that weekend. Too calm, in fact. Caroline played the role she knew well. Mother, wife, victim of her own guilt. She tried to hold me a little longer when we passed in the hallway. Tried to smile through dinner. Laughed too loudly at the kids' jokes. The overcorrection was obvious, and I let her do it. I tucked the kids into bed Saturday night, read the usual chapter of the pirate book, and kissed their foreheads like it wasn't the last weekend we'd ever feel like a family. She stood by the doorway, arms folded, trying to read my face. I gave her nothing. Sunday morning, I rose early, showered, shaved, put on the same gray suit I wore to our wedding rehearsal dinner, an intentional callback, though she wouldn't realize it until later. By the time the kids were finishing pancakes, I was already downtown, walking into Lorraine's office with a manila folder full of evidence and a resolve like steel wire. The plan was precise. At exactly 10 a.m. Monday, Caroline would be served in front of her coworkers. The moment she settled into her office chair, 2 uniformed process servers, one male, one female, would appear at her glass door. She'd open it, confused, thinking it was a delivery or mistake. Then they'd hand her the envelope. Inside, divorce papers. On the grounds of marital misconduct. Attached, a statement of claim against her company citing breach of professional ethics, supported by the photos, email threads, and the HR meeting transcript Lorraine's contact had quietly secured. At the same time, Mark would receive a couriered package to his penthouse office downtown. Different envelope, but similar content. Photos, timeline, names, and a letter addressed to his board of directors outlining his role in leveraging sexual access to secure corporate contracts. Not threats. Facts. Documented. Truth had a way of swinging harder than any punch. Caroline didn't know about the financial firewall I'd spent the last week building. She didn't know about the prenuptial clause she had forgotten she signed, one that severed her claim to company assets in the event of infidelity. She had never read it beyond the summary her lawyer gave her. Neither of us ever thought we'd need it. But I had, and I had made damn sure it was ironclad. By Sunday evening, every last piece was in place. The kids were asleep. Caroline stood in the bedroom, brushing her hair silently. She hadn't said much all day. Her nervous energy was like a frequency in the air. Her eyes were bloodshot. Her fingers shook slightly as she ran them through her curls. I told Joy I need a few days off, she said quietly. Oh, she said it's fine. I think she knows something's coming. She does, I replied. Everyone does. She turned then, slowly, dread moving like a tide across her face. What did you do? I walked over, handed her the last thing she expected. A photo of Mark and her, on the balcony, her face frozen in mid-laugh, his lips on her neck. Her knees buckled slightly. I caught her wrist and sat her on the bed. She stared at it like it was a death certificate. This doesn't have to go public, I said. If you sign the settlement quietly, forfeit spousal support, and give me primary custody, I'll leave your name out of the company complaint. Her eyes filled. But the kids, they'll be fine, because they'll have one stable parent, someone who didn't trade their family for a client dinner and a hotel key. Tears finally came. Quiet. Violent. I didn't mean to hurt you. No, I said, standing. You just didn't care if you did. I left her there, broken, not from rage, not from cruelty, but from precision. On Monday at 9:58 a.m., my phone buzzed. A message from Lorraine. Served. Went smoothly. HR already requested a meeting with her at noon. Mark's board just acknowledged receipt of your letter. Well done. I exhaled. Victory didn't feel like champagne or applause. It felt like quiet. The kind of quiet where the lies stop echoing, where the chaos finally goes still. At 6:45 that night, Caroline texted. Can we talk? I stared at it for a long time, then set the phone face down and poured myself a drink. Let her sit in the silence for once. Let her hear it scream. The silence stretched for 3 days. 3 full days without a knock on the bedroom door. No can we talk. No late-night tears. No breakfast apologies served with shaky hands. Caroline was like a ghost in her own house, moving quietly, eyes red-rimmed, barely eating, barely speaking. But she didn't leave. That was the part one hadn't anticipated. I thought she'd vanish, flee to her sisters, or check into a hotel. But she stayed. Maybe it was shame. Maybe it was denial. Maybe she just didn't know where else to go. But I think, deep down, she still thought she could fix it. Still believed she could cry enough to erase the ink on the divorce papers. What she didn't know, what she couldn't know, was that I'd already filed the final version with the court that morning. She wasn't negotiating with a man anymore. She was negotiating with a verdict. And the verdict had already been written. The kids felt it. Of course they did. Children always do. They noticed the tension, the missed good night kisses, the way Mommy seemed to flinch at Daddy's voice. They didn't know the words for betrayal or deception, but they felt the absence. And I'd be damned if I let Caroline rewrite that narrative. So I sat them down that Friday evening, just me and them on the couch in the family room. Sonia curled against me, clutching her stuffed bear. James played with the zipper on his hoodie, not looking at me. I want to talk to you about some changes. I began gently. Mommy and Daddy, we're going to be living in different houses for a while. James looked up, eyes already wet. Are you getting divorced? I nodded slowly. Sonia whispered, Is it because we did something bad? No, sweetheart. I pulled him closer. You two are the best thing in my life. Nothing about this is your fault. This is between Mommy and me. Will we still see her? James asked. Yes, but you'll be living with me most of the time. That was the hardest part, because even after everything, Caroline was still a good mother. She read bedtime stories, made them pancakes on Sundays, knew every detail of their school schedules. But I couldn't look at her without seeing Mark's hand on her back. I couldn't sit at the same dinner table without tasting the lie she poured into every "I love you." After I put the kids to bed, I found her in the kitchen, nursing a glass of wine she hadn't touched. You told them, she said flatly. I did. She nodded. Did you tell them why? No, I said. That part's yours, Caroline. You can tell them when you're ready. But they're not stupid. They know something broke. She stared at the wine. I didn't mean for it to go this far. You didn't mean to get caught, I corrected. That's different. I thought I was helping, protecting us. That I could. Don't. That shut her up. For the first time in weeks, she didn't defend herself. She just nodded slowly. a kind of defeated acceptance settling over her like dust on old glass. She left the next morning. One suitcase. One sob goodbye to the kids. No tears for me. I think she knew better. I watched from the porch as the cab pulled away. That should have been the end. But it wasn't. Because late that night, after the house was asleep, I got a phone call. Unknown number. No voicemail. I let it go. Then a second call. I answered. Is this Gary? The voice was low, hesitant. Male. This is Mark. I said nothing. Just let the silence strangle him. I didn't know, not at first. About the marriage. About the kids. She told me she was separated. That she. Stop. He did. I took a breath. What do you want, Mark? I want to make it right. I actually laughed. Bitter and sharp. You can't. And I don't need your apology. I know. But I'm stepping down. From the company. The board voted last night. I'll be gone by end of quarter. He paused, then added. I'm sorry. I was selfish. I should have seen it. I ended the call without another word. Let him have his guilt. Let him rot in it. Later that night, I sat outside on the back deck. Just me in the wind and a glass of something dark. I expected to feel closure. But what I felt was tired. The same word she used to justify her betrayal. But mine was different. Mine wasn't an excuse. It was an honest exhaustion. Of pretending. Of holding up the broken frame of our family like it wasn't splintering in my hands. The paperwork was filed. The custody was mine. Her reputation gone. My company? Still intact. I had won. But as I looked into the quiet night, I realized something darker. Winning doesn't mean healing. And justice doesn't always feel like peace. The days after Caroline left passed like smoke. Visible, but untouchable. The house was quieter, and not in a peaceful way. It was the kind of quiet that settles over a battlefield after the last shot's been fired. Not relief, just the absence of more pain. I kept busy, too busy. Filed the paperwork, closed the joint accounts, changed the locks, set up the kids' new routines, built walls around every vulnerability I used to leave exposed. I even packed up her side of the closet, every piece folded with a kind of surgical detachment. Left the boxes in the garage for her to collect when she worked up the courage. She didn't. She sent a moving company instead. I stood on the porch while two 20-somethings loaded up the evidence of our life together, one box at a time. She never came back, and that should have been the end. But it wasn't, because pain has a long half-life. You think it fades, but really it just sinks deeper, learning how to hide inside your bones. I kept thinking about something Mark said. I didn't know, not at first. And I believed him. That was the part that pissed me off most. I believed him, because I remembered the early messages. The ones before the affair turned physical. The way she described me as emotionally distant. The way she told him she felt like a ghost in her own marriage. That I hadn't touched her in months. That I was always working. That I didn't see her anymore. That part wasn't entirely a lie. I had buried myself in work. In the kids. In pretending I was fine when I wasn't. I just thought I had a partner. Someone who would stand beside me through the gray patches. Instead, she went looking for color elsewhere. Doesn't excuse her, but it explains her. And those two things aren't the same. I had no interest in dating. People said I should. That I should get back out there. Friends offered setups. Even Michelle, my assistant, my quiet anchor through it all, suggested grabbing dinner just as friends. But I wasn't ready. Because even after Caroline was gone, I still lived with the ghost of what she'd done. Every room was a memory. Every drawer a time capsule. Even the kids carried echoes of the woman she used to be. The good parts. The parts one still grieved. That was the sickest part of it all. You don't just mourn the betrayal. You mourn the before. And then, one Thursday morning, I found a letter. It was wedged between envelopes in the mailbox. No return address. Handwritten. Folded neatly. Inside, Gary. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I just want you to know something you'll never hear from anyone else. I never stopped loving you. Not once. Even when I was making every wrong choice a person could make, I was thinking of you, wishing you would stop me, hoping in some twisted way that you would find out and make it all collapse. You were always the steady one, the strong one. I didn't leave because I stopped needing you. I left because I didn't deserve to need you anymore. I'll carry the shame forever. Not just for what I did to you, but what I did to myself. I hope you find peace, even if I never will. Caroline. I stared at that letter for a long time. Not because it moved me, because it didn't. Not anymore. The part of me that used to ache for her, used to need her to explain, to apologize, to beg for a second chance. That part was dead. Burned out. What remained was something quieter. Still. Cold. Peaceful. Months passed. I kept the house. Put in a new fence. Started coaching James's soccer team. Took Sonia to ballet class. Life, strangely, went on. One day, after practice, Michelle showed up at the field. Not in heels and slacks this time, but jeans and a hoodie, holding 2 coffees. I figured you could use a break, she said, handing me one. I nodded. Thanks. We sat on the bleachers in silence, watching the kids chase each other around the grass. Then she said, you're allowed to start living again. I didn't answer right away. I'm not sure I remember how, I admitted. You'll learn. I looked over at her, and for the first time in months, I saw her differently, not as a witness to my pain, but as someone who hadn't run from it, someone who stayed. And in that moment, I didn't feel broken. I felt unfinished. And for the first time since my world collapsed, that felt like enough.